28 weeks later. Hey guys, hope all was jiggy. 28 years later is just about to come out, so to prepare, I recently reviewed the awesome first movie, so now I'm doing the second one. But the only reason why I'm reviewing 28 weeks later is to analyze it and finally work out why I've always disliked it. For the past 18 years, I've never had fun watching it, but I never really knew why. It's time I work it out. Just like Alex Garland himself, who wrote the first and third films, but not the second one, I think 28 Weeks Later is a soulless sequel, a cash grab, capitalizing on the first film's success. And if any of the cast and crew from the first film came back to make this one, it hardly shows to me, because it feels way too different to the first film. But with all of that being said, I do get why plenty love it. It's a very unconventional horror sequel. It stands on its own feet, it slightly expands the old lore, and it has some great scary moments with quality acting. But every positive I find with it comes with multiple negatives. I just can't get on board with you guys, so let me explain why. Be warned guys, this is going to be one hell of a ranty video, and also big spoilers up ahead. The intro is set during the first outbreak we saw in the first film, so naturally it has the same grounded, humble feel of that film. It's just people trying to survive the outbreak whilst hiding inside a farmhouse. Simple but effective. Easily my favourite part of the film. And when the infected break into the house, it's intense. The chase sequence, how the shaky cam is used to convey the infected's rage, and yet we still get a great clear sense of what's going on. This is all sorts of brilliant. But I hate how the main character, Don, survives this intro by being a coward. He leaves his wife, Alice, to die. And I get that I could never know what I'd do in his shoes unless I was in them, but if you're going to make your main character do something this contemptible, you have to justify why. And I don't really think the film ever does. More on that later. Now, this new version of London being rebuilt may be an obviously less relatable world than the first film's world, but it is a plausible and unique way of continuing 28 Days Later. The problem is, this new world is run by boring characters and officers and generic grunt American soldiers with their give me something to shoot attitude. It's dull. Plus, we all know that another outbreak is going to destroy this world again soon, so 28 Weeks Later has the burden of inventing a fictional world, developing it, and then quickly destroying it again, ending the film in the same place the first film began at. So, I think it just would have been much simpler to make this film a sidequel set during the first film's outbreak. I mean, even the intro proved that that concept could have worked, but whatever. After we're introduced to Don's kids, this Dead Zone part adds a fresh sense of childish energy to all of this horror. And what a bloody great turning point when we discover that Alice is not dead, that she's infected, but something in her blood prevents her from turning. She's immune, a carrier of the infection. I just didn't see that coming. It does make sense how Don managed to see her, because it is stated that he has access to the building.
Triple A, access all areas. That's me.
And this whole scene with the kiss? What a wonderful, creative way of causing another outbreak in this universe. It's great writing. Great writing that expands the old lore. And speaking of which, we do get some small hints that give us new information on the infection. First of all, when Don becomes infected, he seems to be a lot smarter than most of the other infected. Some have theorized that this is due to Alice's infection evolving over the months. And considering that the third film is partly about the infection evolving, this sequel might have set that up, but we'll see. And the other hint potentially fixes the issue I had with Don running away in the intro. When Don kills Alice, at face value, this is just another infected killing a non-infected, and the eye gouging is just a cheap callback to the eye gouging scene in the first film. However, the director and one of the writers have both stated that there may be more to this scene than meets the eye.
Got it!
The reason why Alice survived the intro was because the infected don't attack each other. That after she became infected, the other infecteds all left her alone, even though she didn't turn. So why did Don kill her after he became infected? Because his rage is powered by his guilt for leaving Alice to die. So he kills her, whereas the other infecteds would not. And him gouging her eyes is not a cheap callback to the first film, it's him removing her ability to look at him in the eye, like she did when he abandoned her. It could also explain why Don was so bent on killing his own kids after he became infected. He wanted to kill them to remove his own guilt. So, this kinda gives weight to the part where he runs off. We thought we were getting a redemption arc, but it turns out to be a full arc. And if this actually is canon, then I do take back my complaints of Don running away in the intro. This actually does work, and they did something with it. But I think these points should be made far clearer in the film because it's incredibly easy to miss these details. So much so that I'm unsure if these details are actually canon. We'll see what the future sequels say. Once the outbreak starts, there are some good points. Robert Carlyle is sensational in this role, man. He looks scary as hell, and with his signs of intelligence, he stands out amongst the other infected. His shoulder camera angle is phenomenal. The jump scares feel earned, and the performances are great. Like, when Imogen Poots finds out that her dad is infected, remarkable acting. But the outbreak is held back by terrible quick-cut editing. It was obviously bad at times in the first film, but here, with all of these guns and explosions, it just gives me a headache. And after the outbreak, I keep getting emotional whiplash. By this point, the film has already asked us to adapt to all of the characters changing their roles. You know, Don is the main character, then he's a side character, then the villain, and now the kids are the main characters. Alice is dead, no, she's alive, now she's dead. It's a lot. But then the kids are accompanied by these paper-thin side characters who just come and go. One of them being the soldier, Doyle, played by Jeremy Renner. He is a good soldier, extremely kind, noble and selfless, but they go so overboard with it that I struggle to buy him. He just sacrifices himself and throws his life away so easily because he's a heroic archetype with no flaws. The sacrifice of such a kind character should hurt me, but I just don't feel his death, especially when his role in the film is flipped around like plenty of the other characters. But the worst one for me is this helicopter pilot soldier. This pilot is kind of portrayed as a good guy. He's extremely loyal to Doyle, and he wants to save him by flying him out of here. But he can't take the civilians with him for fear of the army shooting them down. But as he flies away, Doyle requests help from the pilot, informing him of the oncoming infected.
Man, we're gonna fucking die down here, do something!
So whilst he's in the air, the pilot accepts this request by risking his own life and flying into the infected. He sounds like a bigger hero than his friend Doyle, risking his own life to chop up the infected and save his friend. But there's one thing I missed. It's like the writers learnt from their mistake of making Doyle unnaturally kind, because as they made the pilot unnaturally kind, they also made him unnaturally cruel. The whole reason why this pilot began flying off in the first place was due to this terrified civilian panicking and then grabbing onto the landing skid. For such a minor inconvenience, the pilot skips stages and decides to kill this poor civilian by flying him around until he loses his grip. But before the civilian loses his grip,
Man, we're gonna fucking die down here, do something!
so the pilot accepts his friend's request and decides to kill two birds with one stone. He chops up the infected, not just to save his friend, but also to terrify and torture this poor civilian who's still hanging on to the landing skid. And it must mean so much to this pilot because he's risking his own life to do it. And as you can see, he's having a real fun time torturing this guy. The basis of this action scene is to theatrically torture and kill an innocent victim for the minor crime of grabbing onto a landing skid. Why was this put in the film? Why couldn't the writers just have the pilot save Doyle by chopping up the infected and leave it at that? How does the film want me to feel about it? The point of this scene is clearly to be a cool badass action scene filled with violent catharsis as our protagonists get saved. It's put here to make us happy and excited. So why did the writers mix such saddening cruelty in with the scene? I get it if the civilian was an evil bad guy, that wouldn't make me feel sad for him at all. But he's not a bad guy, so how am I meant to feel? If Doyle was such a good guy, why is he friends with a sadistic psychopath? Why am I the only one commenting on it? Why does no one else seem to react to this poor guy getting tortured to death? Wow. Either way, Don ends up infecting his immune son, and then Don is killed by his daughter. Sadly, this means nothing to me, it just happens, it's a means to an end, whatever. Then the nasty pilot makes a return, and decides to finally be a good guy and evacuate the kids to France. But of course the writers couldn't control themselves. When they made this pilot do one last act of kindness, they had to make it a bad thing. Because the boy carries the infection in his blood over to France and he ends up spreading it. How does that happen? Your guess is as good as mine. Guys, in the end, I think 28 Weeks Later sucks hard. I don't think it fits well with the first film at all, but just on its own terms, I think it poorly balances all that it tries to do. It has some great ideas, wonderful performances, cool moments, and it's quite unpredictable. But it doesn't do anything with my expectations after subverting them, and it subverts them too much, making me dizzy. Just break it down. Alice is dead. No, she isn't. Yes, she is. Don is the main protagonist. No, he's not. His children are. Don was actually a side character this whole time. But now he's the main antagonist. Don's cowardice was pointless, but if you look deep into it, it might not be. But the reasons why it might not be may not be officially canon. The infection seems to have subtly evolved. What comes of that concept? Nothing. London was gone, but it's back now. Okay, it's gone again. Side characters become main characters just to be killed off like side characters. The pilot is a good guy. No, he's bad, but he's good, but he's bad, but he's good, but he's bad. And after all of that insanity, the film ends on a sad note without telling us why it's sad. And what connects all of this nonsense? Frantic action which is shot up way too close and mostly edited shoddily. How was this the first continuation of 28 Days Later? How the hell am I in the minority of people who dislike this film? I have no clue, but I am glad that the fan base do not feel like me because this is not a fun feeling. Bloody hell, I hope I like the third film more than this. I'm gonna give 28 Weeks Later a 4 out of 10. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay jiggy. The badger appreciates ya.